now I'm ready to add fabric number 3. So I've got my fabric here, and I'm going to cut a piece that is going to be, let's see, I'm going to eyeball that. Let me move that to the side. Cut that out. And let me check to make sure that this piece covers. It covers all the way around the edge here, down here, more than enough there. I'm going to fold this line. Don't have my card, but that's okay. I can just fold it back again. And now I'm ready to place my fabric. This is where fabric number 3 is going to go, but I always put my fabric on the back. So I'm going to put this fabric over number 3, and I'm looking. I've got fabric number 1 here, fabric number 3. Traditionally, you put right sides together. Since this fabric is the one that's going to move, and it's the one that goes on next, this is the one that gets flipped down to right sides together. I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to pin on that sew line between number 1 and number 3. And once again, the reason why I'm pinning here is because I want to double check that when I sew that line and pull this piece back, that this piece will cover up to the dash line all the way around. So that looks pretty good. I'm ready to go to the sewing machine. I don't like to put my needle like that when I sew, because I have a tendency to forget about it. So I'm going to reposition these needles, take it to the sewing machine. Once again, I'm using red thread, so you can see I'm starting a few stitches past that broken line, or the seam allowance line. I'm going to take this pin out, and I'm just sewing right down that line. I'm going to sew all the way to the end, and if there's extra fabric, I just go to the end of that. Pull up and clip. I need to, oh, I don't have anything to, oh, here they are. I need to clip these threads. Always clip these threads because they have a tendency to get caught up, so make sure you clip those. I'm going to check to make sure that this was sewn in the right spot, and yes, it comes all the way back. I'm going to fold this paper down because I like to trim this excess. Going to take and just sort of eyeball, oh, this is pretty scant 1/4 inch. I'm going to trim that 1/4 inch. And now I'm ready to take it to the pressing board. As I said in the last one I press, if you don't want to get up and go to the iron and it's a long straight line, you can just take your nail and press. Now I've sewn all 3 pieces of fabric together, and I'm ready to trim. Before I trim, I usually like to sew around the edge here so that these pieces aren't flapping like that. It's not necessary to sew that edge, but I think it makes it a little bit easier. So let me put this in. And notice I'm not sewing on this line. Let's give you a shot here. I'm not sewing on the sewing line, and I'm not sewing on the dash line. I'm sewing in between. This is just like a temporary stitch to hold everything down so that those sides don't flap. So I'm sewing all the way around. The reason why I'm not sewing on this line is eventually this will be a line that's sewn on. I don't want an extra pair of stitches there. So I can stop right here. And I pull it out, and I always make sure that I clip these little pieces. So now I'm ready to take this to be cut. If I have my scissors, I can just use them. If I wanted to use the rotary cutter and mat, I could. But I'm going to cut on that dashed line. And once again, that last line that I sewed makes it easier when I cut this because those pieces aren't flapping around. Let's get this. And there's my paper piece pattern, the 3-inch rail fence.